On Friday night, I attended the second highest scoring game in NBA history. The Clippers Kings game, the Russell Westbrook debut, lived up to the hype and then some. An offensive display that I've never seen before. Going to be talking about how the Clippers blew the game on three separate occasions. And of course, Russell Westbrook's debut. So much to talk to. I'm on today's Locked On Clippers.
On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I had a video of the game up there. Insane. I got everything from Russell Westbrook's introduction, where Clipper fans gave him an ovation and then some. First couple of plays, and of course, all the big crunch time plays. And mind you, Clipper fans, I want to give a shout out to all the Clipper fans. Best atmosphere of the season of any game I'd gone to this season. And you could also hear that on TV. I rewatched the game. It sounded great. Hopefully, we continue to have games with that kind of energy and enthusiasm as the season winds down to a close. And a big reason why it was that kind of enthusiasm was the debut of Russell Westbrook. But the Clippers were the ones that ended up losing this game in double overtime, a game in which, second most points ever, the most points ever coming in 1983 Detroit Pistons against Doug Moe's high-scoring Denver Nuggets. But to be at that kind of offensive display, definitely a blessing, but of course, a little sour at the end. I did not walk out of there with a smile. So I'm going to be talking about where the Clippers went wrong and how they kind of took the lead and then blew it on three separate occasions. I'm going to talk about why and what to prevent that going forward, what things they need to focus on. And then in the second segment, I'm really going to be talking about Russell Westbrook's debut. And I think there's going to be some stuff left over at the end. So let's get right into it. What a crazy game this was. And it was an offensive masterpiece from both sides from the get-go. The Sacramento Kings, Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, and De'Aaron Fox each made a three within the first 3 minutes of the game. And Paul George, what's funny is he didn't have a 2-point field goal made till the second half. His first 5 field goals made were threes off the catch, and they were fairly easy shots for him, and that's part of the reason why he wanted to bring in a Russell Westbrook. But Kawhi Leonard was just unbelievable. One of the craziest shot-making displays I've ever seen a Clipper put on live. 44 points, was 13 for 15 from the field at one point. 21 points in the third quarter, which was the most for him in any quarter in his entire career. So I went to Kawhi Leonard's highest scoring quarter of his entire career, but still to no avail. And that's because the Clippers couldn't guard. And I think even though it has nothing to do with the 3 times that the Clippers thought they had the game. I thought we had the game in overtime, in double overtime, in regulation more than anything. But the main reason the Clippers lost this game is because they didn't do a good enough job defending. The effort, I don't want to even say attention to detail because it was mostly just terrible one-on-one defending. If you're going to have a switch-heavy scheme and you want to switch everything so much, then you got to defend. You got to stay in front of the ball, or else once you get blown by, your defense is in rotation and you're susceptible to open shots and open threes. And the Sacramento Kings are the highest scoring offense in the league right now, or have the number 1 offensive rating, and you saw exactly why. De'Aaron Fox is so hard to contain off the dribble, and nobody could contain him on the Clippers. Nobody. Russell Westbrook was the one that started against him, and I don't expect Russell Westbrook to guard De'Aaron Fox. Kawhi Leonard couldn't even stop him without fouling. So he was getting what he wanted for the most part and just creating a lot of open threes, but the Clippers themselves are playing well offensively as well. 40 points each in the first quarter, and then at halftime it was 80-76. You get to the third quarter, Kawhi Leonard is going nuclear, hitting all kinds of shots. Trust me, I'm going to talk about Russ and his impact in the second segment. But it was pretty neck and neck. And then in the fourth quarter, the Clippers just continued to get great shot after great shot, amazing ball movement, moving the ball quickly, and just hitting all their open threes. It was finally a game where the Clippers just went absolutely nuclear as a team from three. And it just was unbelievable. The Clippers didn't create as much separation as you would think because the Kings were also shooting well from three. I mean, they were 18 for 41 on the night from deep, 44%. Clippers were 26 for 45, 58% from three, and still lost. That's insane. And where it started to go wrong was in the fourth quarter when the Clippers were up by 11. I think it was 146 to 135. And it started with Russell Westbrook got a turnover on the sideline. But if I'm being honest, I really don't think it was that bad of a turnover because at least it was dead ball. And, they scored right after that and made it a 9-point game. And it's crazy because the Clippers were actually up by 14 with 4:25 to go in the game, 145 to 131. It's just a 14-point lead with 4.5 minutes left at home. That's very old school vintage Clips, the bad kind right there. And I think it was a little bit of complacency, of course, but it was this stretch that completely turned the game around. And it's funny because my friend that I was at the game with went to the bathroom when we were up by 14, comes back to his seat, and it's a 3-point game. And here's how it started. So Russ lost the ball. Clippers are up 147-136. Russ lost the ball. De'Aaron Fox scored off of it, but this is when it went bad. Because with a 9-point lead, 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, you think it's still okay. Ty Lue tells Russell Westbrook to get Paul George the ball, runs a set, wants to call a set for Paul George to bring the ball up as the initiator. And, Paul George's whole MO has been, I want someone to take the ball out of my hands recently. And that's why Russell Westbrook was brought in, and he's having a really good game playmaking at this point. His turnovers have not really come in live ball situations in the run of play. It's mostly, there was a couple of moving screens, one in the first half where Marcus Morris was about to slip on the screen and De'Aaron Fox was holding him and didn't call anything, and then Russ gets a turnover for it. But Paul George just lost the ball at half court. De'Aaron Fox just stripped him, cookied him, went all the way and scored. Okay, terrible turnover. Now we're only up 7. Come back up the court. And Paul George stops his dribble after he gets bumped by Fox. Kawhi Leonard is coming towards him at the top of the key. And instead of waiting a second, he throws a straight line pass with a flat angle across the court, basically, beyond the three-point line, of course, not like one corner to another corner, but across the court, basically, flat line with no pace on it. Keegan Murray is in the passing lane, intercepts it, and just like that, Paul George cost the Clippers 4 points on 2 live ball turnovers. And following that, he doesn't even get back. He's heads, I don't know where he was looking, just stopped. I don't think he wanted any part of the ball after that, is what I think. And Norman Powell was coming up. Kawhi Leonard is coming up. Russ is taking the ball out. I honestly don't know why he didn't pass it to Kawhi Leonard there on the baseline. But Norman Powell stiff arms Malik Monk, and the Clippers get another turnover. And just like that, another bucket is scored, and the Clippers are only up 3. I mean, a series of unfortunate events is an understatement. Paul George, I mean, how many times do we have to talk about the insanely questionable turnovers that he has at the end of games and in crunch time? It's funny because that was our biggest question with Russ that a lot of people are concerned about, including myself, is his timely turnovers. But in this one, Paul George, I mean, it totally changed the momentum of the game. And that being said, the Clippers still had a 3-point lead. And on the last play of regulation, there's been so much discussion about this play. And it looks to me, my honest analysis, Clippers are switching every screen. Initially, Russell Westbrook is guarding Malik Monk. There's one screen set. I think it's Fox that sets the screen and Paul George is guarding him. They don't switch. I think they may have they maybe were supposed to, but they didn't end up switching. So Paul George is still guarding Fox. But then there's another screen set, which switches Paul George onto Sabonis and Kawhi Leonard onto Fox. When they switched that, that's when I realized that the scheme was to switch everything. Because when Russell Westbrook and Paul George were involved in the action, there was this moment where they didn't know what to do. They were going to switch, but then they ended up staying with their men. So I knew this scheme was to switch everything. Malik Monk is making his way all the way around the perimeter. He's trying to go drift to that right corner. And Harrison Barnes stands in front. He's guarded by Nico Batum. Looks like he's about to set a screen for Malik Monk on Russell Westbrook, for Malik Monk to come off. He doesn't exactly set it, and Russ takes his eye off the ball. I'm sorry, no. He starts ball watching, takes his eye off Monk, and starts standing kind of at the top of the key. But technically, a lot of those kind of actions at the end of games, even if Harrison Barnes, even though he didn't really get to set the screen, he was about to go right by him, and he looked like he was going to set the screen. So for Russell Westbrook to anticipate a screen being set and expect a switch is not a crazy thing. But they didn't really communicate that, and then Norman Powell and Nico Batum now don't really know what they're doing as Malik Monk is coming to the corner. Keegan Murray sets the last screen for Malik Monk to come off, and given that Norman Powell was guarding Keegan Murray, he should be staying home. But what he did was, and this is the most mind-boggling play of the game, maybe even more than Paul George's 2 turnovers, Norman Powell went to help out on the drive when De'Aaron Fox got by Kawhi Leonard when the Clippers were only up by 3 and there was literally 3 seconds left in the game. He almost got the steal, and you got to give De'Aaron Fox credit. He was going out of bounds, made a nice lob pass, and Malik Monk relocated very well for that 3. And you just knew the second he got that clean of a look, he was going to hit it with the night that he had. But Norman Powell, that's basketball 101. So I know a lot of people want to blame Westbrook on that last play, but I honestly don't think that was as costly. If Norman Powell just stays home, he's going to see that Keegan Murray is going to set a screen for Monk, and he'll know, because Norman Powell's not a dumb basketball player, he'll know that the action is clearly for Malik Monk, who's got the hot hand to pop out for the corner 3. But because he took his eye off that and went to go help Kawhi for no reason, then Malik Monk ended up getting free because there was no communication between Nico Batum and Norman Powell. But another thing you can question is that the Clippers didn't foul. And that's the age-old conversation when it comes to this kind of thing. When you're up 3 with such few time on the clock, do you foul and put them on the foul line? That's going to be my question for you in the comments. Should the Clippers have fouled? Because I saw Ty Lue in the huddle. They actually, on Bally Sports, they had a feed where they were looking at the huddle. And Ty Lue said, don't foul. I could see it. And I just think he wanted to make sure they didn't foul in a 3-point attempt or anything like that. But that looked like it killed the momentum, but we were still at home. It was an energetic game. And there was a 6-point lead in overtime in the first one and a 6-point lead in the second one. And coming up, going to be talking about that and Russell Westbrook's debut in depth. But before that, got to talk about Nissan's most electric player of the week. A new week is upon us, and I am going to predict that Kawhi Leonard will be the Nissan most electric player of the week because he is brilliantly fierce and absolutely powerful, dominating in the mid-post and overpowering his defenders. He's really not blowing by that many guys when it comes to one-on-one. It's just his absolute strength and fundamentals, footwork, and amazing shot-making ability. And Nissan's most electric player of the week is brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com for your 2023 all-electric Nissan Ariya. All right, so let's finish off with the overtimes and then we'll go straight into Westbrook. The first OT, we went up by 6. 162 to 156. It felt like the Clippers were about to be home free and just withstood a Kings push, but that would not be the case. And one thing that's an interesting conversation to have is that Mason Plumlee did not play a lot of that fourth quarter. I'm not even sure if he played any of it. Yeah, he didn't play any of the fourth quarter. So until Sabonis got fouled out in overtime, the Clippers went small the entire fourth. And yeah, it did some wonders for the spacing, I'm not going to lie. But the Clippers allowed 43 points and scored 36 in that fourth quarter. Got outscored by 7 points. So I know part of that is to accommodate Russ and give him more spacing. But it's still a little questionable that sometimes Ty Lue, even before Russ, has wanted to close games without a center, without Zoo. We've always, a lot of people have complained about that. And the Kings got a couple of second chance points. What started their little 6-point comeback was Chimezie Metu, after Sabonis had fouled out, got a putback and one. He missed a free throw. And then on a stop that they got, Malik Monk went in transition coast to coast and threw it down. And some of the plays he was making were just unreal, unbelievable. I couldn't, so many different words to just say spectacular. I mean, floaters, finishes around the rim where he elevated super high, 3 balls, contested, on the moves, catch and shoot. He was unconscious. It was unbelievable. What a performance by him. He had 45 points, 45 off the bench. And no doubt about it, I think Malik Monk is definitely in the 6th man of the year conversation with Norman Powell. He's averaging 14 points a game. Actually, I don't know about that. His 3-point percentage is only 33.6% this season. So Norman Powell's stats are better, and we're only a little bit behind. But, man, this loss puts the Clippers 4 games back at the Kings in the loss column, which is absolutely brutal. But after a second offensive rebound in that little stretch where the Kings came back from that 6-point deficit, they scored off of it. And that's when Ty Lue brought Mason Plumlee back in the game to get some size out there. Last play of overtime, Paul George was doubled. It's exactly what we figured with Russ that was going to happen, was they were going to leave him and double Paul George or Kawhi, whoever it may be. And that's another question for you. Should Paul George have swung the ball to Russ? Because I actually think Russ is a better shooter when he has no time to think about it. He may have made the big shot, but who knows? At the end of the day, that's not really a big reason why the Clippers won or lost. Or should I say lost? Paul George missed the shot, and then we get to another interesting talking point. Paul George's minutes restriction, even though I'm pretty sure the plan wasn't for Paul George to play 41 minutes at that point. If he's already exceeded the threshold, why not let him keep going to get the win? Sat him out the entire second overtime. But the funniest part was we still ended up going up by 6. Russell Westbrook was getting to the basket, making plays, and Kawhi Leonard still was able to hit a jumper. 175 to 169 with 1:49 left, and Russell Westbrook fouled out of the game with 1:49 left. Eric Gordon came in for him, and after that, the Clippers didn't end up scoring a point for the rest of the game after Russ came out. Harrison Barnes made the 2 free throws in which Russ fouled him, which made it a 4-point game. Norman Powell missed a floater. That's just, a normal shot that he makes. And then Malik Monk hit a fall-away 3 over Kawhi. Just such a tough shot. And then the 2 costly turnovers for Mason Plumlee. They were double-teaming and blitzing Kawhi at the top, and Mason Plumlee made one wrong read. Keegan Murray was the only guy underneath the basket against him. He should have gone up strong. He made the wrong read. There was Eric Gordon, I'm pretty sure, was open in the left corner, but instead he went to the right corner. Pass was intercepted by Chimezie Metu. In my opinion, he should have just gone up strong there. And I think Mason needs to look shot first when he gets the ball like that, especially when his man is going out to blitz, because that would mean that the guy that's probably rotating under the basket is going to be smaller than Mason Plumlee. So that turnover was costly, but they still got to stop. And then same thing, Nico Batum gets the ball, throws it to Mason, but De'Aaron Fox is right behind Mason Plumlee, and it didn't seem like Plumlee saw that. And you can blame Mason for that, for a little bit of a lack of awareness. But Nico Batum is not putting him in a good situation there, because Nico had the view of where De'Aaron Fox was. And he should know how quick he is, and that you're giving the center of the ball, and he doesn't know where De'Aaron Fox is. So 2 straight turnovers by Mason Plumlee there and De'Aaron Fox. When I saw that second turnover, I knew that we were going to pay for it, because they're a good team this season. And De'Aaron Fox is a great player. He could not be contained. He hit the go-ahead pull-up jumper to put the Kings up 176 to 175. Kawhi missed a step back. And look, I thought Kawhi was amazing, but his last bucket came with about 4 minutes to go in the second overtime. He was short in a couple of those last jumpers in the overtime sessions. He was clearly running out of legs. That was the most minutes, I don't know, not ever in his career, I don't think, but they said it was his most minutes in like a long time, or I think the most minutes he's played as a Clipper in a game, 46 minutes. So it's good to see that he could go that distance, but he was definitely running out of legs. And Paul George being out the second overtime doesn't help that scoring drought, but Russell Westbrook fouling out was tough. And I guess I've said so much about the game that we're only going to have time to talk about Russell Westbrook in depth, though, coming up. But before we do that, going to talk about Built Bar. Yes, I miss Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. If you're like me, where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise the taste, I've got just what you need. I've got what you need. You got to buy Built or try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious you won't think they're good for you. They're like chewy candy bar type, and they have a chewy interior that reminds me of like 100 grand, but they're perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're 100% covered in real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like candy while maintaining amazing macros, and they have only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to order them online at Built.com. You can go to Walmart or your local Sam's Club and grab a couple of boxes. If you go to Sam's Club, you can get a flavor that I want to try so badly, and that's churro. All right, let's talk about the man of the hour himself, Russell Westbrook, in his debut. I thought he was pretty awesome. It was such a breath of fresh air to have somebody that was that good of a passer on the court. We haven't had a passer like this since Chris. He made our offense look like a whole different level of scary. Another guy that can pressure the rim. Basically everything that people were saying that were pro this move, that's what it looked like offensively. Now, there were still some deficiencies, 7 turnovers, although it looks worse than it is. I'm going to contextualize those in a second. But whatever context I still use, 7 turnovers is still too much, especially considering Paul George's ridiculous ones that I mentioned. And by the way, I didn't mention that Paul George had a live ball turnover that resulted in 2 points in the first half, where he telegraphed a pass that Davion Mitchell stole. But yeah, I called them the turnover brothers, and they lived up to that in this one, combining for 11 turnovers in the game between the two of them, and the Clippers had 25 as a team. The Kings, on the other hand, had 15. So when you turn the ball over 25 times, you're not going to win basketball games against good teams. So that's another reason, along with not taking pride defensively enough, not staying in front one-on-one. That's the second biggest reason. Because I really don't think there was one person or one reason that the Clippers lost more than anything. A lot of people telling Clipper fans, trying to scapegoat Russell Westbrook for his turnovers, trying to make the last play, I don't want to call it the malfunction, miscommunication, whatever it was. Norman Powell leaving Malik Monk. As I said, I put that more on Norman Powell. He shouldn't have been helping Kawhi Leonard when we're up by 3 with like 5 seconds left in the game. You can't get beat with the 2. You can't. You can't even tie with a 2, I should say. But Russell Westbrook added pace to the offense. He had a couple of hockey assists. He even tried being the screener. I mentioned that in previous episodes, and there was obviously a lot of talk about his resistance to do that with the Lakers. But so good in that short roll, making some really good reads, and just the difference in having an actual point guard with passing mechanics, and what I mean by that is the timing of his passes, the crispness of his passes, the pace on them, right in the shooter's pocket. There was one play where he was in transition, Euro step, backhanded it all the way to the corner for a wide open Norman Powell three. It was just beautiful. And that's part of the reason why Paul George, first 5 field goals were just threes, just coming off of screens or being open from Russ. And honestly, Paul George played better in the second half, and I think that's kind of his vision, is to have Russ take the ball out of Paul George's hands in terms of initiating the offense, so he has more energy in the second half to do a little bit more initiating and getting buckets one-on-one. But it's funny, he complained about playing like J.J. Redick or like a Ray Allen on Boston on all the smoke going into the 2020-2021 season, and now he's wanted to do the opposite. But I think it's first half, maybe more so Ray Allen-like, Boston Ray Allen. Second half, get busy with it. Tracy McGrady, Paul Pierce style. But I loved what I saw from Russ, even though he turned the ball over 7 times. So let's contextualize that. A couple of them were on moving screens. If he's going to try to set off-ball screens and it's his first game, we like that because we're talking about ways where he can become effective off the ball. If those are the kind of turnovers he's getting and they happen in like the second quarter, that is not affecting the game that much. That's okay. Dead ball. We can get back. It is what it is. As I mentioned earlier, there was one where his first one where Marcus Morris was being held on the short roll, on the slip screen, I should say, and they didn't call it. That goes down as a turnover for Russ. The one that really kind of hurt was when he tried to cross over and it allegedly went off his leg out of bounds in front of Mike Brown, in front of the Kings bench kind of. But we never saw the replay on that. But still, it wasn't that costly. The one that kind of sucked was the Mason Plumlee one where Mason was trying to get post position. I don't think he sealed his defender, though, very well. And Russ, he probably shouldn't have thrown it knowing Mason or seeing Mason hadn't really sealed and it was a risky pass. But he still got the ball back on a steal off of that. And the Clippers, I'm pretty sure, scored off of it. He got an assist. So it wasn't nearly as bad as Paul George's turnovers. So to me, yeah, the 7 turnovers looks horrendous. But Russ, to me, had a really good game. He also made some big plays down the stretch. Now, that being said, I'm still of the belief that maybe he shouldn't close games because the ball just tends to find non-shooters at the end of games. And that end of the first overtime, if that was Eric Gordon there, we're getting a good look at the end of that game. But Eric Gordon, I have to mention him. His defense was night and day from the Phoenix game. He didn't sit in any sort of defensive stance. He was dying on every single screen. And it seems like what we're going to see from Eric Gordon is he's going to be better against certain guys one-on-one that aren't as quick but maybe try to body up, like, your Devin Bookers or LeBron even, those kind of guys. But quick guards like De'Aaron Fox, I think he's going to struggle in the pick and roll. I think that's something to keep an eye on. But a lot of it was just effort. He just wasn't good overall. And the guy I kind of dedicated the last episode to, Terrence Mann, of all 9 players that played for the Clippers, obviously Robert Covington and Bones Highland didn't play, Terrence Mann played the least minutes, 18, less than Eric Gordon, 20 less than Norm, 20 less than Nico, 21 less than Russ, and 7 less than Marcus Morris. Terrence Mann, who's been one of our best players for the last 2 months, was the whole conversation about what he's done to the starting lineup, being the guy that guards the point of attack and has also been able to initiate offense, cuts, does all the things he does, and now he's getting 18 minutes. It's just been the common theme we've seen from Ty Lue this season. And, Marcus Morris, he does the same thing every game now, it seems, where he plays well in the first quarter, but after that, he just totally slips because I think his legs just go. His jumper doesn't start falling, and he starts getting blown by left and right. In the second quarter, they were going at Marcus Morris and blowing by him left and right. We also had a tough stretch where Mason Plumlee was out and Sabonis was in the second quarter, and not having Zoo really hurt. Sabonis was just dominating in that stretch. And that's when the Clippers had an 11-point lead, and it was cut to about 4 by halftime. That stretch killed us. And then after that, until the Clippers went small late, Mason Plumlee was, his minutes were matching up with Sabonis. And one thing about Mason Plumlee, I actually thought he had a really good game besides those turnovers. He had a double-double, 10 points, 10 rebounds, but those turnovers just were tough. I also think seeing him a couple games, he's not as good protecting the rim and on the interior defensively like Zoo. I don't know if it's because he's not as strong or he doesn't have as good of timing or he doesn't seem as big. He is more athletic, but Zoo is just, the way he takes away angles is really impressive. He's a better interior defender to me. Mason, though, better ball handler, better athlete, gives the Clippers a slightly different look, but the Clippers missed Zoo for sure. Moral of the story, though, the Clippers didn't score after Russ came out of the game. So even though you might think I'm harsh with the maybe he shouldn't close thing, I mean it, because at the end of the day, the Clippers are struggling to get stops, and Russ is part of that. I thought in the first half, he was doing a decent job defensively. I mean, nobody can guard De'Aaron Fox. As I said, even Kawhi Leonard couldn't guard him without fouling. But Kawhi Leonard's help defense in the second half was really good. Paul George, good and bad defensive moments. Eric Gordon, poor. Really poor. Marcus Morris, after the first quarter, he was cooked, and he didn't really play much in the second half at all. He didn't come back in after his third quarter, starting the third quarter shift. And then, obviously, Terrence Mann and Nico Batum are going to always give a good defensive effort. Norman Powell, though, was the one that was getting attacked in crunch time. Because Norman was out there with Russ, Paul, Kawhi, and Nico. That was the lineup to close. No center until after the offensive rebounds in overtime. And Norman Powell was the one getting attacked, and he wasn't doing that great. There was one time where it was really an unforced turnover. De'Aaron Fox tried to drive on him, and he lost the ball out of bounds. But overall, Norm was he wasn't great. And you just want to have guys that don't get targeted. And that's why having a Terrence Mann out there is big. Not both Norman Powell and Russ. It can be a little tough because in the second half, Russ wasn't playing defense. He was standing up straight. He was getting lost off the ball. He was like almost roaming, not really guarding anyone at times. And Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox got the better of him. And yeah, they got the better of everyone, but I got to be fair. Overall, I love what Russ did, and I think there is an angle if he doesn't close every single game that this can be a huge positive move, honestly. He's going to come with his flaws. He's not going to be able to shoot the ball very well from the outside or anywhere. He's not going to be flawless in terms of turnovers. He's going to have turnovers, but he's by far the best passer we have. I mean, our offense looks so smooth because he's hitting guys right in the pocket. He's hitting guys at the right moment when the play's developing, right when they're coming off a screen, not lagging, not throwing wayward passes. And that's the thing. Not all completed passes are the same. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they just don't have the passing mechanics of Russ. Passes can be low, high, not, if it's supposed to be a lead pass, passing it behind them, all these different things. Paul George, especially when he gets blitzed, he doesn't make good passes. He makes some really bad ones. Kawhi Leonard has less bad ones, but he just still doesn't have the playmaking passing of Russ. Although I will say, he threw two or three passes in this game that were some of the best passes he has thrown as a Clipper. I mean, there was one that Kawhi threw where he was like, spinning and double teamed and threw it to Paul George in the opposite corner. It was insane. But yeah, it was a shame that the Clippers couldn't get a win in Russ's debut. I thought the crowd was so good in trying to uplift him. And shout out to all the Clipper fans there that were really trying to make an effort to make Russ feel welcome. Keep it up because we want to have that guy be as confident as possible. But the Clippers lose it 176-175, only the second time in NBA history where a team scored above 170. I want to say this. Actually, I'm going to read the stats and then finish off. But Terrence Mann, 10 points, came in with 30 seconds left in double overtime. 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 turnover, the highest plus-minus of any Clipper with +6. He was 4 for 5 and only played 18 minutes. Oh, brother. Eric Gordon, 2 for 3. All his shots were threes. 8 points, but he was a -16, which was the worst for any Clipper. He did not guard anybody. It was nothing like the Phoenix game. Marcus Morris, 25 minutes. He shot well, 9 points on 4 for 7 shooting, but the second quarter he just got attacked on defense. And again, I don't think he should start. Terrence Mann should start over Senior. He makes our team much quicker, more athletic, better cutter, and he guards more than anything. He guards. And then Mason Plumlee played 25 minutes. I don't think he's missed a field goal yet as a Clipper. 4 for 4, 10 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Still played good defense, but those turnovers were really costly. He had 3 turnovers. And then Nico Batum, I have to mention him. I thought he was incredible. There were a couple of threes, though, good looks late in regulation that it would have made a huge difference if he had hit them. But he was, on his bobblehead night, he was unreal. The amount of shots that he altered was out of this world. 19 points, 8 rebounds, only 1 turnover on 7 for 12 shooting, and 5 for 10 from deep with 38 minutes left. And by the way, on that last play of the game, double overtime, I don't know what Norman Powell was thinking. Kawhi Leonard actually seemed like he had decent post position on the left block. He didn't trust his passing, I don't think, there to throw the entry. He probably should have. But honestly, he should have shot it if he didn't do that. He second-guessed himself and pump fake twice and threw it to Nico for a deep three, from the left wing. It was just, I don't think that was the right decision. But, it was interesting that Paul George wasn't in the game when there was a moment when Russ fouled out. And by the way, standing ovation from the Clipper faithful, amazing. But there was a moment where Russ fouled out where Paul George asked, you need me to go in? You need me to go in? Want me to finish? And they didn't let him do it. And at that point, it's like they just, again, the medical staff, whoever's in charge of the load management, all this stuff that's haunted us all season, this is costing us regular season games. I'm not saying that Paul George would have 100% won the game, but we didn't score a point. And Kawhi Leonard was carrying a large load offensively, shot 22 times, made 16 shots. Paul George had played, it's tough. So the turnovers by Paul George were huge. Norman Powell and Russell Westbrook being out there on the same court causes for some defensive issues. And also, on the last play of regulation, why don't you have your best defenders in? Why are Norman Powell and Russ out there? Terrence Mann needs to be out there for that possession. It's just mind-boggling to me. Again, Ty Lue going very offense first. It's just very questionable. It's not putting his players in the best position to succeed. Russell Westbrook, though, in his debut, 17 points, 14 assists, 5 rebounds, 7 turnovers, so that's a 2-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. We'd like to see him keep that number down. But 14 assists, how many times have we had guys getting double-digit assists for us this season? 7 for 13, so he was very efficient. 1 for 4 from deep. There was only one of them where I really had a problem with it, where he was contested in the left corner. Didn't need it, but he hit the biggest one of the game late in, I think it was the first overtime. Paul George, 34 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 turnovers, though. 3 of them resulting in 6 points. 9 for 18 from the field for him. 5 for 8 from 3. 11 for 14 from the line. And that's actually a killer because there was a moment where he missed 2 free throws in overtime. But if he had, and Nico Batum did get the putback, but if he had made the first, that's 1 point difference in the game right there. Norman Powell, 24 points off the bench, 6 for 14 from the field, but I think he was much better in the first half. He only had 8 points in the second half, and he was targeted a lot on defense. He obviously, in my opinion, got it horribly wrong on the last play and just missed a couple of good looks. 24 points for him, 4 turnovers, which is high for Norm. 6 for 14 from the field, 5 for 8 from deep in 38 minutes. And then Kawhi Leonard, 44 points, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 2 turnovers on 16 for 22 shooting, 6 for 9 from deep. This guy is just shooting lights out from 3 recently. 46 minutes is a lot, though, but it's just so sad the Clippers did not come out with the win. But overall, here's what I got to say. I think there's a lot to look forward to. The Denver game is going to be really hard, especially because no Zoo. But they did play on Saturday night, so it's a back-to-back for them. The thing is, it's such a tough place to play, but it's a big game because the Clippers, this is a bad loss, straight up. It's a terrible loss. It may just put them a little out of reach for the 3rd seed. They're going to need Sacramento to lose games, and they're going to have to win games. And with this whole Russ thing, it's just, you're incorporating a new player, and it looked really good. It looked really good, but what I'm concerned about is Ty Lue. So overall, I thought Russ was great. I really did. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was a great move yet, though, because it's just one game. And our goals are to win a championship, not, just regular season games. But there are steps, baby steps. And I really liked what I saw from Russ, who played 39 minutes. But Paul George's turnovers were absolutely costly. Mason Plumlee's turnovers were costly. Ty Lue playing Terrence Mann so little is extremely redundant and annoying and unfair. Obviously, no Robert Covington, and the guy was still pumping up the crowd, trying to get everybody to make noise for the Kings players to miss free throws. You can't say enough about his professionalism, that guy, Robert Covington. Just sad that we ruined a great night from Kawhi, but you got to give Sacramento credit as well. Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox were just spectacular. 45 for Monk, 42, 12, and 5 steals. 42, 12, 5, and 5 for Fox. 12 assists, 5 steals, 5 rebounds on 17 for 27 shooting and 2 for 4 from deep. I mean, he was just spectacular. But a heartbreaking defeat for the Clippers. Just got to be better closing out games. Attention to detail. Simple basketball errors. You hate to see it. But we'll see. Ty Lue's got to be better. Russell Westbrook's got to be better defensively. He's got to take care of the ball better. Paul George needs to just be smarter. Norman Powell, Eric Gordon need to play better defense. And Terrence Mann's got to play more. I mean, I'm just going to have that on my tombstone at this point. But what an insane game. Just what an insane game. And hopefully a playoff preview, because at this point, even though the Kings are a good team, I would much rather play them than play Kevin Durant in the first round or play Luka Part 3. But thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Now make your second listen game-to-game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game-to-Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game-to-Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm sorry, guys. This felt so frantic of an episode because, it was one of the craziest games ever, and I have to do it in 30 minutes, and I went 10 minutes overtime. So double overtime game, double overtime pod, 5-minute overtime period. So that's double overtime. 10 minutes adds to the original total for a 40-minute episode. Let me know in the comments, though. Do you think we should have fouled at the end of regulation? And what do you think the biggest reason we lost was? Let me know. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers. They're 33-29 now. We got 20 games left. And Denver, man, it would be so nice to beat them. I know we're playing Reggie again, but it'd be so nice to beat them because it seems like they have a little bit of a psychological edge over us. And we need to just break that a little bit by getting a nice win in the altitude and showing everybody we're for real by beating a really good team. But thanks for joining me. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And please, if you want to see what it was like inside the arena, because it was amazing, check out my YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, video of the game up. Age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.